Okay, you're live.
All right, thank you. Welcome everyone to the Chaska Planning Commission meeting Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. It's very close to 7 o'clock. We're going to call it to order. Liz, would you do a roll call, please?
Yes, I can. Commissioner Brass,
Here.
Lacey,
Here.
Olson,
Here.
Riley,
Here.
Seiler,
Here.
Urbanski,
Here.
and Chairperson Dahlke.
Here. Okay, I'm going to read, I should have read this probably before we started, but I'll read it right now for our guests. Welcome, everyone. As you can tell, this meeting looks a little different. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we're holding our meetings via video teleconference. Because the City Council has declared a local emergency for the COVID-19 pandemic, state statutes allow us to hold our meetings remotely. Even though we aren't meeting in person, we want to make sure the public can participate. If you've joined the Zoom meeting, you will notice that you are muted. We have a moderator on the call who will unmute those who wish to speak during the public comment portions of the meeting. Public comments will be reserved for visitor presentations, public hearings, or special circumstances determined by the commission. Once we reach these parts of the agenda, I will ask if there are any public comments. If you wish to speak and have joined the meeting by computer or tablet, please click on participants on the bottom of your screen and then select the raise hand icon. If you wish to speak and have joined the meeting by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. Once your hand is raised, the moderator will announce your name or phone number and unmute your line. Please remember that public comment is provided at the discretion of the commission and is meant to provide productive discourse on topics related to the city of Chaska. Speakers shall refrain from comment or behavior that is deemed disorderly, derogatory, obscene, indecent, or off topic. Any person engaging in such speech or action will be muted or removed from the meeting. Those of you watching online or on Comcast Channel 15, please be aware of the following. Some of our commissioners, city staff, and presenters are participating in the meeting remotely. There is a delay between live meeting and the broadcast. All commission actions will be taken by roll call vote. We're working hard to make sure that you can be heard as we protect everyone's health and safety. Thank you for your patience as we work through this unprecedented situation. I'm kind of hoping that's might be the last time we have to read that, but I don't know that, I'm just hoping. Okay, we've done the roll call. So next on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. Before we adopt the agenda, for anybody that's joined the meeting, one of the action items, 7.A, has been postponed. Tonight, it's the review of the zoning ordinance amendments for landscaping and subdivisions in the city of Chaska, PC number 2021-05 and 2021-06. So that's being postponed. And then I'm adding 7D to action items, and that is to take action on our open vice chair position. That being said, can I get a motion and a second to adopt the agenda?
As Commissioner Olson, I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, sir. And Liz, I guess we need a roll for that, right?
Yep. Commissioner Brass,
Aye.
Lacey,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
Seiler,
Aye.
Urbanski,
Aye.
and Chairperson Dahlke.
I as well. Item 4 on the agenda is our visitor presentation. Do we have anybody that would like to present something that is not on tonight's agenda?
I do not see anybody raising their hands or entering the chat, so I'm going to assume nobody's here for visitor presentation.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. Item 5 on the agenda is to approve the previous meeting minutes, which would be approving the draft of the March 10th Planning Commission meeting minutes. Has everyone on the commission had a chance to review those?
Yes.
All right, I'll take a motion in a second to approve the March minutes.
So moved, Commissioner Lacy.
Thank you.
Commissioner Riley will second.
Thank you, sir. Roll, please, Liz.
Commissioner Brass,
Aye.
Lacy,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
Seiler,
Aye.
Urbanski,
Aye.
and Chairperson Delkey.
Aye. All right, there are no consent items on the agenda for tonight, so we'll go down to 7, which is number 7 is our action items. So 7A, which was postponed, we'll go past that to 7B, which will be a public hearing to recommend approval of the zoning ordinance amendment Z0A to the fence ordinance, City of Chaska, PC number 2021-04. So Liz, would you like to walk us through that?
Yes, I can. I'm gonna share my screen. Open up this PDF. Y'all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So we have a zoning ordinance amendment request tonight, specifically to the zoning ordinance section 9.20, which is the fence ordinance for the city. So specifically, we're looking at a couple sections within the fence ordinance that we're amending, particularly with the pool enclosure requirement for single family lots and pools in general. So currently our fence ordinance requires a 5-foot height requirement around pools. And this was basically taken from our building code as a safety requirement years ago. And the building code has since changed, and the safety component now only requires 4 feet around these swimming pools as a safety enclosure to help separate these pieces from other adjacent uses and people, so that it doesn't become an unsafe environment for other people. So again, the 4-foot requirement comes from the building code as a safety component. And as a result of that, a lot of communities actually in recent years have changed their ordinances to this 4-foot requirement for pool enclosures. So now us as the city of Chaska would like to do the same. I also did make note in the report too that being able to change it to this 4-foot requirement would also hold true or be consistent with other HOA requirements for fencing in neighborhoods, particularly the Club West Harvest neighborhood. They only allow fences to be up to 4 feet high max. So being able to have this change in our code would provide more congruency with some of our existing neighborhoods out there. And this would also still hold true to the safety component that is required to kind of keep those uses contained. Another piece that we are going to amend tonight as a part of the fence ordinance is section 9.20.2 CII, which is our decorative fence section of the code. In recent or historically speaking, we've applied this notion that decorative fences are the only type of fence that we allow in the front yard, as long as it meets a set of requirements, and one of them being that it's no more than 50% opacity. So that's kind of the transparency that you're seeing through the fence. So it's providing enough openings within the fence to kind of meet that requirement. They're not allowed to go over 4 feet in height. And then they also need to be designed as decorative. So typically what falls under that is a picket fence or a split log fence, something of that nature. So that's been the only type of fence we've allowed in the front yard. And historically speaking, we've never considered chain link fence as a decorative fence or that exception in the front yard. And we've applied that through the years. It's just never been expressly written in our code. So since we're doing a fence ordinance amendment for pool enclosures, this was a time to kind of get that codified. So again, this isn't something that's changing with this codification here. It's something just to kind of continue what we've been applying historically speaking. So there is going to be a section added 9.20.2 CII, which is highlighted in red here, which would be the addition to the fence code, indicating that a chain link fence is not considered decorative. So again, getting back to kind of what you typically see on those front yards for fencing, like picket fence and split log fencing. And then getting to kind of more of the significant changes happening around the fences enclosing swimming pools section, which is section 9.20.3.5. So again, our current code requires that at a minimum, a 5-foot high fence is required to enclose pools. So the amendment we're seeking this evening, which would change this minimum requirement to 4 feet, and then help simplify a couple of the sections to kind of indicate that a little bit more clearly. So I've highlighted the 3 sections that are changing, and in red is what it will specifically state. So the first one, a safety fence shall be installed around an above ground swimming pool when the above ground swimming pool is accessory to a single family dwelling. And a safety fence is required if the pool is greater than 24 inches in depth and more than 5,000 gallons capacity. So this first point is not anything new to our fence ordinance. It's basically kind of a compilation of 2 different sections, which basically were redundant to each other, so we just combined it to one. The second section, 9.20.3.5 DI, is a safety fence at least 4 feet, but no more than 6 feet in height shall be constructed to completely enclose an in-ground swimming pool. Really, the only piece that's changing in here is the 5 feet is being changed to 4 feet. So, getting back to kind of that minimum requirement. And then the same can be said for this third and last section that's changing, which would be a safety fence at least 4 feet, but not more than 6 feet in height shall be constructed to completely enclose an above ground swimming pool, or the sides of the pool above grade shall be a minimum of 4 feet in height. So again, clearly stating what the requirement is for both underground and above ground swimming pools. So that's a summary of what's changing in red. Happy to answer any questions related to these, to this amendment to the fence code, but we are asking you to make a motion tonight to recommend approval of the zoning ordinance amendment to section 9.20 for fences, based on those sections that I just iterated.
All right.
Anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Liz. Does anybody on the commission have any questions for Liz before we open up the public hearing? Okay, I am not hearing any. So I am going to, at 7:16, open the public hearing to any of our guests that would like to speak to this topic.
All right, if anyone has a question or a comment, if you could just use the raise hand icon. Okay, we have Michael Henderson. You can unmute now.
Hey there. Thanks for taking my question. 5,000 gallons by my math is a 16 by 16 by 2.5 foot deep pool. And I'm just curious as to where the number 5,000 gallons came from. Is that from a code book somewhere or picked out of the air or what?
Yeah, from my knowledge, it does come from the building code. So the certain size dictates or triggers that requirement to have a fence around it.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else, Kevin?
I do not see anything. Again, if you do have a question or comment, just we'll give you a moment here to, if you can't find that raise hand button on the bottom of your screen. Going once. Commissioner Dalkey, I do not see anyone else.
All right, very good. I am going to close the public hearing at 7:17 and bring this back to the commission for any further discussion. And I am not hearing any further discussion on this, so I would entertain a motion to approve the changes of the ordinance amendment to section 9.20 for fences.
Yeah, Commissioner Dalkey, I'll make a motion. Everything here seems to be nice and in line. I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the zoning ordinance amendment to section 9.20 of the zoning ordinance, fences for decorative fences and fences enclosing swimming pools.
Commissioner Brass will second.
Thank you, Commissioners Seiler and Brass. All right, we have a motion and a second. So Liz, would you do a roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner Brass,
Aye.
Lacey, Olson,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
Seiler,
Aye.
Urbanski,
Aye.
and Chairperson Dalkey.
Aye. Okay, thank you, Liz, for that.
Yep.
We'll now move on to the next action item 7C, and that is to recommend approval of the concept plan for the Cantissimo of Chaska, Anasazi Holdings, LLC, and that's PC number 2021-03. Liz, you better take over before I butcher anything else here.
Thank you. I'm going to do another share screen here to open up the next presentation. We can all see that. Thumbs up. Good. All right. As Chairperson Dalkey mentioned, we have a concept plan application in for the project noted as Cantissimo of Chaska. It's a memory care and an assisted living facility that's being proposed. So specifically, the site is located and highlighted in kind of this indigo color on this aerial screen. But the site itself is located on the southeast quadrant of Hunter Mark Road and Pioneer Trail. And then just north of the Pioneer Point residential development to the south, we have Super Target to the west, as well as Wings Financial and Hazeltine Golf Course to the north there, and Chaska Commons, just kitty corner from this site. So in terms of a background and previous approvals that have happened near or on this site, in May and July of 2000, the Pioneer Point development was approved. And at that time, which was formerly owned by Fred Melnow, which is the property we're looking at tonight, he basically held off on developing his site as a part of that residential development in hopes of having a different plan on that site. So that's why it was never a part of the Pioneer Point development. has essentially been kind of a remnant piece ever since that time. In March of 2019, so well over a year ago, or sorry, 2 years ago, now we did see a concept plan come through for the site for a different use called Hazelview Senior Cooperative. And that was approved back in that March 2019 timeframe by both Planning Commission and City Council. That was for a 37 unit co-op building for a 62 and older type facility, also 4 stories in height. They just didn't continue forward with their approvals, and it basically got sold off to a different developer. So that's what we're looking at tonight, is kind of the new use and layout for the site. So the developer or application team have conducted their own neighborhood meeting for the use that's being proposed tonight, and they held that meeting on March 10th of this year. They did provide a synopsis of that meeting and laid out some of the concerns that were brought up, which pertained to these bullet points below. So one of them being tree preservation, another pedestrian connections being maintained, drainage, emergency vehicle, traffic, proximity to Pioneer Point, and overall property values. With any concept plan application, we like to get kind of a site forces map or an understanding of how they see the site and understand the amenities and kind of what those big ticket item pieces are on the site to kind of bring forth into the overall layout. So this is what you see on this screen is kind of their interpretation of the site, what's surrounding it, where are the access points, where is there potential for connections to trails, where are the views, and so forth. So in terms of the conditions of this property today, so it's roughly 3 acres in size. It is a triangular shape, as you can see here. So it tapers off towards the eastern side and leaves more of the western side, kind of that development potential. It is vacant, but it also does have a plethora of trees on the site. And they did do a tree survey to indicate kind of where those significant trees are on the site. There are 2 existing public trails that dissect the site. So there's one that runs parallel with Hunter Mark Road, and then there's another one that runs parallel with Pioneer Trail. And the one that's parallel with Pioneer Trail kind of has an interesting kind of cut through here. And the intention of that was to kind of miss all of the trees that were happening on the site. So we'll be seeing kind of a realignment of that as this plan moves forward. And then there's also a drainage swale that kind of dissects the site in the middle here. So these are all of kind of the existing pieces that are significant on this property. So tonight we're looking at another concept plan approval request for what's being proposed, which is the construction of a new memory care and assisted living facility, which is totaling 32 units, residential units, and then that would house 38 total residents. In terms of what's being proposed, it is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, which guides this area as medium density residential. And then as we look to kind of the comparison with the previous concept plan, Hazelview, I just wanted to point out a couple major differences between the two. So in terms of the use that's proposed, again, this is a memory care and assisted living facility. The previous concept plan proposed a senior co-op building, which essentially is a apartment building for people 62 and older. The unit count differs. So this one's only 32 residential units. The other one was 37 units. In terms of size, this one Totals at 22,000 square feet and only 1 story in height versus the previous Hazelview project proposed 68,000 square feet, which was a total across 4 stories in height. And then in terms of parking, this project is proposing a 25 stall above ground parking lot. The previous proposal proposed a 50 stall parking component on site. They had a 20 stall above ground parking lot and then 30 stalls underground for an underground parking lot. And then with tree preservation, this proposal proposes to save 28 of the significant trees that are identified by staff versus the Hazelview only proposed saving 25 of those 35 significant trees. And when I talk about those numbers, we did do kind of a tree analysis during the Hazelview project to really identify kind of where those priority areas are on site from a significant tree standpoint. So focusing in on where most of those oaks and maples were on the site to see, you know, if there's patterns or priorities in terms of what should be saved and what was going to be impacted, because development of this site unfortunately is going to require tree removal as a part of it. But we wanted to ensure that, you know, as this moves forward, that the tree preservation is being prioritized to areas that seem to make sense or would provide benefit to the site. So we did circle in red kind of those priority areas for the site layout to kind of keep in mind as they're situating everything on the site. And again, these areas primarily are oaks and maples clustered together with other species of trees, but these were kind of the more significant areas. So again, the Hazelview project, because it had an underground parking lot, even though the building footprint was a little bit smaller than what's being proposed now, it still required a larger excavation area because of the underground parking lot proposed. So as a result of that, they impacted 3 more trees with that layout. So this new concept plan, they're proposing a slab on grade 1-story footprint. So they were able to save 3 additional trees kind of highlighted within this overall area. And then again, I kind of mentioned it, but this trail on the north side will be realigned to be more parallel with Pioneer Trail here. So these trees on the north end, they're mainly cottonwoods and box elders, so not what we would consider kind of those priority significant trees. So they wish to realign this trail again to be closer to the right of way, because again, it's still within private property here. But their decision to kind of move it forward closer to the right of way was a decision that staff would support, just given kind of the makeup here and getting it closer to the right of way. And then we've got the site plan shown on this screen. So a couple talking points, one of them being kind of the site access on Huntermark Road. So they show one access into the site, which again is kind of coming from Huntermark Road. They're pushing that to the very southern point of their site as much as they can in hopes or in attempts to line up with Super Target's site to the west there. I'll get more into this on a next slide, but just want to point out kind of where the access is situated. The building is pushed more towards Pioneer Trail with the parking nearer to where the access is proposed. And again, primarily trying to create more of a building streetscape there versus a parking lot streetscape oriented towards those public right-of-ways. One of the items that we also had to deal with during the Hazelview concept plan is the center line setback that's required from Pioneer Trail. It currently requires 125 feet of setback off of the center line. Hunter Mark requires 100 feet. But with all the setbacks that are applied, it really scrunches the buildability of this lot. So they are requesting to deviate 25 feet from that 125 foot centerline setback to be 100 feet so that they can get an adequate parking lot and building on the site. And a couple things we look at is, you know, what are some benefits? And we have to look at tree preservation. What's the other setback that's applied on the south side here? So we did provide an analysis both in the Hazelview and pretty consistent with how we're evaluating this site. So with all of kind of the constraints in place of getting a building and parking and meeting a building setback on the southern line, which requires 20 feet, the deviation to go into the Pioneer Trail setback appears to be kind of an even trade-off with what's being proposed on the south side here. The parking lot is situated again between the building and the access here, or the southern property line. Again, this is a 25 stall above ground parking lot. It does meet parking code in terms of how many stalls are proposed per dwelling unit of the facility. Again, the people who are going to be living here are not going to be driving. They're not going to have vehicles of their own. It's primarily a facility where they're being cared for. So the parking would be mainly oriented to the employees working there, and if they choose to have guests as well. They'll have 12 full-time employees within this facility. So that leaves about 13 stalls for guest parking when they come and go. One of the pieces that they're showing, as this is important in terms of kind of this relationship to Pioneer Point, is what type of screening mechanisms are they exploring on the south side. So they are proposing a 6-foot high privacy fence, basically to enclose the parking lot here to act as a separation mechanism between Pioneer Point and this facility. One item that we hope to get more enhancement or details on in the preliminary is what this edge really looks like for landscaping and along the drive aisle here too, to really provide a nice soft vegetative edge between this use and the residential to the south there. So we don't have all of those details yet. I know they're showing some conceptual plantings here, but until we get into the preliminary, we'll have more of those technical drawings to base our analysis on. But our recommendations and conditions of approval do get into providing a nice vegetative edge here. And then in terms of pedestrian connections, again, the trail connections on both the Hunter Mark and Pioneer Trail sides will be maintained with the exception of kind of the realignment along Pioneer Trail. So they are showing some internal sidewalk systems to connect into those trails. I think one area that still needs to be enhanced and will probably come with whatever happens to this access here is being able to provide a continuous sidewalk connection to the Hunter Mark Trail there. And then lastly, they are proposing a couple outdoor patio areas for the residents here. So they have two proposed, one on the north side and one on the east side. The north side is a enclosed patio area, and this will primarily be for those residents who require a little bit more care in terms of health. So having a physical separation from the street is important to ensure that they have a safe environment outside that they can go to. And then this easterly patio will be for those who don't require that much oversight in being able to utilize the outdoors. And then again, getting to the landscaping piece of how are these areas going to be enhanced from a landscape perspective of, you know, these certain edges around the patio areas. And then also want to just point out with this site plan, they are showing kind of those significant trees that were highlighted in red here as being incorporated into the site. The ones that are highlighted in red, again, are the ones that we circled and prioritized as being kind of those priority areas. So the ones that are full out tree delineations are the ones that are being saved. And then the ones shown in red with X's are the ones that wouldn't be able to be saved. So again, they're proposing 28 trees of the 35 circled by staff to be saved as a part of this layout. Here's a more zoomed out perspective of the layout and kind of adjacent uses here for if we need to refer back to this, but wanted to use this slide as an opportunity to talk about kind of the major component regarding traffic and access into the site. So when the Hazelview concept got approved, they actually did move forward in getting a traffic report for that use. And that was an attachment in your packet to kind of give an analysis on that. But one of the big ticket items of that is the location of the proposed access. Again, with where the southern property line sits in relation to Super Target's entrance here is it's definitely offset. So it did point that out as being a major traffic point in terms of being able to align these access points up so that traffic is maintained in a safe and orderly manner here at this intersection. Unfortunately, they don't have full control over getting this moved southerly, but it's certainly something that needs to be explored fully to see about getting this intersection fully aligned. Because again, there's concerns with just how this intersection would impact kind of the overall system and people turning into and out of both the target site and this site with it being offset. So one thing we did point out is working with the Pioneer Point development to the south in terms of getting a cross-access easement to be able to move this to the point where it can be lined up fully. And I know they've been exploring the option of doing that. So that's one thing that we'll need full determination on before we get into preliminary to see how this access will be located, but also operated in terms of the overall system. So with that, in addition to that, the county is also concerned about how that relates to their intersection at Pioneer Trail and Hunter Mark. So this all kind of overall relates. And so both the traffic study, city staff and county staff have indicated the importance in this access being able to align. So as they prepare for a preliminary submittal where we get into more of the technical details and analysis, we will want an updated traffic study to address some of those comments and concerns from both city staff, county staff, and what the previous traffic study did indicate to in terms of this access and turning movements and overall impact on the intersection system here. So that'll be one thing they'll have to work towards as they prepare for a preliminary submittal. And then in terms of the design of the building, again, it's a 32 unit building. It's only 1 story in height. It'll have a pitched roof system with kind of these articulative dormers here, which are purely just for aesthetic, essentially. The shape of the building is kind of a U-shaped footprint. So it's not kind of a straight line, so to speak. And that was intentional, again, to kind of bring this back into the site and open up this site corner here. So they wanted to provide interest to the building layout, but also keep the sight line intersection open as well. In terms of kind of the building materials they're proposing, so they're utilizing more what you would find in kind of residential type buildings. So they're using glass, stone, lap, and shake siding. And again, that was intentional to try to fit in with the residential to the south there. So being that this is a multifamily building, they'll have to ensure to meet our building design and materials ordinance. And within that is our 360-degree architecture requirement, which at this time, we don't see any issues with that. It's just a matter of getting those details provided and ensuring they meet our ordinance. Here are a couple rendering views from multiple angles of the site, just to provide some perspective from these various angles. And then just another component with memory care and assisted living, we generally like to understand kind of what the internal medical care provided in these facilities are, just to understand if there's going to be any impact on the city system in terms of police or fire department services. Typically, we get more emergency calls from these facilities related to lift assist and CPR. So we were able to meet with their staff and our fire department to kind of hash out some of those details. And they do provide internal services and lift assist and DNR policies to help with combating any influx of emergency calls outside of their facility. So generally speaking, the fire department was pretty comfortable with what they had internally. So just want to rehash some of those things that they'll have to work on for the preliminary. In terms of tree preservation and landscaping, you know, obviously we want the best efforts to be put forward in terms of tree preservation. This is a very challenging and constrained site as it is, but the fact that they've taken a pretty hardy approach in this initial phase is definitely comforting as staff. But of course, we want to ensure that as they continue moving forward, is there more that can be done in terms of tree preservation? So still want that to be a priority to the development team as much as it can be where possible. So just seeing if there can be more saved as they move on to the next step, and then making sure that they provide adequate screening, primarily on the south side that abuts Pioneer Point, but also around those outdoor patio areas too. And then probably the big ticket item is traffic and access on the site. So like we noted, we'll need to see an updated traffic report addressing kind of those bigger comments related to access alignment, and seeing about securing an access agreement or an access easement on the south side so that full alignment with the super target access can be achieved. Also looking at the possibility of turn lanes into the site if warranted, and looking at their impact on the Pioneer Trail and Huntermark intersection. So in conclusion, we are asking you to make a motion tonight to recommend approval of the concept plan for Cantissimo of Chaska, and then based on the conditions that are listed in the report. So I'm open to questions. I know the development team is also here if you have specific questions for them. So I'll hand it back over to you, Mr. Dalkey.
Thank you, Liz. Appreciate that detailed presentation. Does the commission have any questions for Liz that, or for the developers at this time?
Liz, how about wetlands? Are there any delineated wetlands on the property? I didn't hear reference to that.
Yeah, and we don't know for sure because we haven't gotten to the technical step yet on whether or not there are delineated wetlands. So as they prepare for the preliminary, that's one item of requirement that they need to get done.
Generally, where their buildings are significant bur oaks, which would tend to suggest that at least where their building isn't wetlands, but they may have other places where they might be impacting them with stormwater or other type things.
Okay, so they might have some offsite mitigation that they'd have to do.
Maybe.
They'd sort that out.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'm just struck by it's a lot of impermeable surface on a very small lot. I know they'll get into the drainage design later. Could you just give us a sense of what the drainage patterns are? You mentioned an existing swale through the property. Does that go into the adjacent property, into a storm sewer system? And why I ask, I mean, are there offsite upgrades that might be ancillary to this?
I'm not entirely sure, but the drainage swale that's currently on the site, they will be correcting that, as they move forward, and obviously have to provide their own on-site drainage system. How all that's going to work and whatnot, we don't have those details yet because we don't require a stormwater plan in this concept, but it will be something that will be hashed out thoroughly in the preliminary.
All right. That's all I had, Commissioner Dalkey. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Riley. Anyone else?
Yeah, Liz, I'd like to point out that, I agree with, the city's position. It's really important, the traffic and access, and that's an item to work on. It's great to hear that the applicant has already met with adjacent development. That's also great to hear as we try to partner to come up with the best plans for all parties involved. On the traffic and access, personally, I think, lining that up is extremely important. If it can't line up, I don't know what real other alternatives there are. I don't know if a roundabout would fit there, or if that would be too close to the stoplight, or inserting a median and hunter mark so traffic can't go across on an unaligned intersection. I don't know if those are actual solutions or even feasible items, but it's good to see that we're working hard with all parties to try to get that aligned. And if it is not able to get aligned, if the cross easement access doesn't happen, or won't happen or can't happen, does that really limit this property in the future? Would we have to look at changing the designation to it in the long range plan? I don't really know what else could go there, except if more townhomes were to fill out kind of the original plan that just didn't happen because this piece was held back. So that's it, just mostly comments there. And it's a concept plan. It looks good. It looks good for what it is now. A lot of unanswered questions and open-ended items.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I like about this plan, as opposed to the last plan we looked at, it is maybe on an percentage of impervious, it might not be much different, but it is a huge downturn in traffic, number of people, on the site. I would expect that the neighbors to the south would be much happier with this scenario than what was originally planned for the site. Any other commissioners want to speak to Liz or Kevin or the developers?
This is Commissioner Urbanski. I wasn't a part of the original discussion in 2019, but comparing the two projects, I'm really happy with the way this looks. I think it's a beautiful building. It looks really nice. Kind of gives that residential appearance to it, which I think is great, especially for those that need the services that they're going to provide. Going from a 4-story to a single story, I think makes a big difference for that corner too. And for trying to find, for use like this on the lot that's there, I think this has been well thought out. We've got a couple things to deal with here, but I'm really happy with the way that the design is coming so far.
Yeah, I would also add, Commissioner Lacy, that it fits the lot much better than the previous concept.
Okay, if that's it for the for commissioners for now, this isn't a public hearing. It's not it's just it's a concept plan. But I'm noticing anyway that there's at least one person with a hand up. Is that correct, Kevin?
Yes, Tom C. Would like to speak.
Okay, and I think that's if we were live, we would let that happen. So I think we'll let it happen now.
Commissioner Dalkey, real quick before Tom C. starts, there is also one other person with their hand raised as well. So.
Okay, very good.
Okay, Tom C., go ahead.
Am I being heard?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. I currently am a resident of that property to the south at Pioneer Point. And in looking at this compared to the one we had seen previously, I totally agree that this is much more attractive in terms of how it fits the space. The concern about the traffic and the intersection as it crosses over to Target, I see a few different ways of how that's going to have to work. One is to move the Target entrance so it would line up with what you're proposing. Two, the median insert, which one of the council members brought forward, which is a good idea. But if you want to leave those out of the factor and make the entrance directly across from Target, you've got to be impacting the homes in Pioneer Point. It was mentioned earlier in the presentation that there was a meeting on March 10th. Unfortunately, I was not around here at that time, and I was not aware of any such meeting. When it's mentioned that there's going to be further work with the Pioneer Point community, who are they speaking to at that point? Is it the board of directors there? Is it the property manager? Is it the original developer for the property? Who's in charge of communicating and setting that meeting up? Because we have private roads in this community. So there'd be the issue here if you're going to run roads into our roads. But it looks like the current plan didn't have that. It was going to curve off to the side, but that was where it didn't match up. If you're going to match up, then you got to run into our properties. That's all I've got.
All right, thank you, Tom.
And maybe if, I can just step in here really quick.
Yeah, please do.
Just to, first off, with anyone who is a part of the commentary, if you can provide your name and your address, we have to add it for public records. So
sure.
just,
I'm sorry, Liz, that was my fault.
No, it's okay. And then maybe to get to one of Tom's questions in terms of, we're hoping to maybe solidify who the best contact would be from the Pioneer Point side. But ultimately, it is going to be a discussion between the developer and the Pioneer Point development in terms of coming to an agreement on that. So it's more so kind of an internal discussion between the two. But we would welcome any feedback in terms of, if there is a good contact there to start with, so that we can relay that to the developer to continue to work towards that.
Okay. Well, there are 3 boards here that make up the Pioneer Point community. And then, of course, there's a master board as well. And my name is Tom Collins, just like the drink. And I currently reside at 439 Campfire Curve.
Thank you.
So if they want to contact the board, they should get in touch with the property management group, which is Cities Management in Northeast Minneapolis. They can provide the contact information for the appropriate persons on the master board for the community.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, Kevin, would you like to, looks like we have three in the queue, so go ahead and let somebody in.
Yes, First Missionary Church, you are next. Feel free to unmute. You'll have to unmute. So if no one can hear you quite yet. So there you go.
Okay. That's my ministry Zoom link. My name is Will Hope, and this is my wife Jackie, and we reside at 421 Wilderness Drive in Pioneer Point. And I want to thank Liz for a great presentation tonight. And there's a couple of observations that I just want to bring forward, see if there's some answers. Liz mentioned the buildability of the site is challenging. And I think this is the dominant issue. The density issue also follows up. With this being a triangular piece of property, it forces the workable space to be even more dense in its use. And if you ever come by here during a school day, when there's pickup at that access where they're talking about access now, it's a very dangerous situation. We have cars cutting across Hunter Mark to go to the other residents on the other side. We have cars coming in to Target. We have cars coming into Pioneer Point. And this should be a real concern when you do the traffic survey. But the other thing I want to ask, it seems that Liz mentioned the word as this moves forward. And this is a question I have. Does the Planning Commission already have intentions to approve this project? So that's my first question right now. Is the lean-to in the Planning Commission, does this pretty much have a green light in your mind's eye? And then I have 2 other observations.
Well, I can answer for the Planning Commission on your first question. Keep in mind, this is a concept plan. So there's 2 more steps before this is an approved project. Concept plans, just by their nature are a little bit more vague. This is, obviously there's lots of questions about this one, but there's some good detail here as well. Unless there's no rule, but unless we see something that is just outrageously out of whack or against, zoning ordinance, that type of thing, concept plans generally get approved just so that they can go on to the next step and have all of the questions answered. And they've got to get through, the approval of the staff and the Planning Commission along each step.
So Brian, for the concept plan to go forward, there would have to be the accommodation of the setbacks. So you would have to have some wiggle room about the setbacks that would be necessary. And then having access to the property with existing access points from Target and then from Pioneer Point would also require accommodation. And then there would be accommodation of a parking lot butting up against residents. And so the whole aesthetics kind of get where the property owner becomes, the residents become at a disadvantage of having these accommodations. Is that some of the conversation that will come up in the days ahead?
Yes, that's all. And any other commissioner or staff, please chime in as well. But you are correct. Those are the items that will be, up for discussion and negotiation as we move forward.
And also with the parking, I was just gonna add, I know Liz said that it'll probably just be staff and guests, but assisted living people, unless something's different here, usually they can have cars too. You know what I mean? So guests, the residents probably have cars that they're parking there.
But this is memory care though.
No, it said assisted living.
Oh.
Or is it considered only memory care, or is it assisted living / memory care?
Correct. And that's
Is it
probably
all
a good,
memory care?
it's memory care and assisted living. So you have some residents who require a little bit more medical attention, and then you have some that don't require as much medical attention.
Right.
But in terms of, the parking component, it might be a better question for the development team to answer in terms of what they anticipate as who is parking there. I think we've just been given the information that more than likely they're not going to have their own vehicles, but I'd rather the development team speak to that more accurately.
Okay.
And
Maybe
Liz, just to clarify a bit, the parking lot as the size and setup that it is right now does meet code for the building.
It does, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And again, my final point is, my beginning point is what Liz mentioned, the buildability of the site is challenging. That is, and then the accommodations that have to make it workable is, you always have that code drift or accommodations of setbacks and so forth. So thank you for letting me leverage my comments.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. Kevin?
All right, next we have, I believe it's Lois. And Lois will just there you go.
Yes, I just unmuted. I am also a resident of Pioneer Point and was the president of one of the associations about a year ago when.
Lois, Lois?
Yes.
Please give us your name and address.
Lois Pankratz, and I'm at 373 Campfire Curve. Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes. We sent in a number of concerns about a year ago when the other proposal was on the table. And I do know that many of our residents are very concerned about this whole traffic issue. And I do agree that this proposal is far better than the one from before, and we would agree with that. But I am very concerned that we have a say and understand when these things will be discussed, that the people will have an opportunity to, the homeowners will have an opportunity to weigh in on this as they talk, as the developer and Pioneer Point discuss this with each other. And I find that there are times when I wasn't aware of the March 10 meeting at all. And I don't know who talked with them or what, we weren't even informed of it. And so it seems to me that there are some, there is some lack of communication. And to me, we get a lot farther when we clearly communicate with each other. So that's what I would really ask for. And I don't know, did you get I sent a letter to the Chaska board pinpointing our concerns, but I never really received any information back that you had received it or considered it or anything. So do you remember that?
Was it recently regarding this?
It was last year when this was the last time we were talking about this.
Okay.
is being considered.
I think we have something in the old file, and we can certainly dig that out and provide it as a supplement to the developer. But I do know, previous conversations, I think, indicated that you were not in favor of having any type of access through your site. So I
Yes.
know that was a consensus there, and we can certainly find kind of the original provided to us too.
And
Right.
Lois, I would recommend, if you still have that, to just send it in again,
Mhm.
so it can get attached to this project.
Oh, who should I send it to?
You should send it to me.
Okay,
I'm just gonna give you my email so everyone has it. It's E Hansen, and that's with an O-N, at chaskamn.com.
okay. And I did notice in the information that you attached for today's meeting that some of the proposals that were given the last time as alternatives for access, there were 4 different ones, I believe. And that I was a little surprised that they were included again. Does that mean they are being reconsidered in the future? Or are we going with what you, this one that we just had, where it was like for the concept plan for the, let's see, this one was about ambulances and how they could access,
Sure. Yeah, there's 4 recommendations that were done in the Hazelview traffic study in terms of where the access could go and properly operate. But it's kind of up to the developer and how they wish to move forward. I think from our perspective, the best case scenario is just moving the access more south to fully align with Super Target and still provide some type of separation from Pioneer Point there. But with any traffic study, you're going to see a list of recommendations from them in terms of what can work, what are other alternatives that
Right.
can be explored that work for the traffic. But it's kind of up to the developer and how they wish to move forward to see how all of that works.
Yeah, well, I would be concerned too about the traffic issues because it could be quite dangerous with the traffic we already experience, especially during school times when people are coming and going. It would become rather difficult to get in and out of there with a lot of traffic, especially if it was an emergency, Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much, Lois. Kevin, our next up, please.
Yep. Next up, we have Michael Henderson. And Michael, just a reminder to say your name and address.
Okay, Michael Henderson will state that his name is Michael Henderson, and I live at 2783 Wagon Wheel Curve. I'm a resident of the neighborhood. I'm very close to your shallow infiltration pond. And that's my first question, is this property, I don't think we've been presented any elevation information, but I know that it's about a 3 or 4 foot, a small climb up onto this property from here. And so I see a shallow infiltration pond. Maybe it's because we just had a discussion of fences around swimming pools, and knowing that there's a lot of children here in this neighborhood, it's a little nursery. So that's going to be attractive to children. How deep is that pond going to be? And how is it going to drain in the event of a 500-year rainstorm or what have you? Is that going to come right down into our properties here or what have you? That would be question 1. Statement number 2, item number 2 would be, we also received no notification of the March 10 meeting. This looks like a very well thought out plan, and I'd welcome the opportunity to participate in the conversation, what have you, but we just have to know about it. I mean, we just had no notification. Item number 3 on my list would be that it seems to me that it would be easier to move the target side of the misalignment than to move this. I got to say, I walk a lot, and crossing the street to get over to Target is a challenge. There's a crosswalk here and then 200, there's the street corner and in between, and people want to cut right across. And I can imagine that residents of this facility are also going to walk directly across. And so I think that alignment will be important, and, you know, maybe rethinking the crosswalks across 100 mark there to make sure that people don't get run over. I see that there's a trash facility. I think that sits at the end of the parking lot there. And so, you know, everybody gets concerned about a big trash bin containing medical waste and critters getting into it, or what's going to happen there. But that's, you know, again, something I'd like to participate in the conversation about. I think that's about it on my list. But again, I'll echo, we need to be engaged in the conversation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Henderson. Yeah, I think one of the points that we will have to bring up is that we're aware of how the developer, or who he's getting in touch with, and that he has a plan to get in touch with everybody affected in the Pioneer Point neighborhood. So that's just my 2 cents. Kevin, go ahead.
Yep. Next up, we have Nathan Running. Nathan, if you'd like to unmute.
Nathan Running. My address is 525 Smithtown Court, Victoria, Minnesota. I'm one of the developers in the deal. And I just want to comment on a couple of questions that people had that I can address. Obviously, we're going to get more into this as we progress through this stage, but the first one on parking, we are assisted living by definition, but we are at a high acute care facility. So we have a building up in Fridley. Any one of you are happy to tour if you'd like, but no residents have automobiles there. It's either, you know, memory care or high acute care. So that was one question, and I don't know who asked it, but I just wanted to make sure and get that addressed. The question that was just addressed about the drainage in the pond, that's going to work itself out through you know, the engineering and everything else. We don't have any idea right now how deep that pond is going to be. And then in regards to the notification of you know, we worked with Elizabeth, Todd, and I, and you know, we mailed out everything. We've been trying to get a hold of somebody, and you know, working with Elizabeth, trying to get a hold of somebody on the association. So that's been a big help for us to get that contact information at this point. I just wish we could have had this, you know, kind of in that neighborhood meeting where you guys could have showed up and addressed some of these questions, and we could be a little farther ahead than we are right now. But we still got a lot of work to do, and you know, again, like Brian said, this is a concept plan, and we're going to work through these things. So that's all I got at this point.
This is Commissioner Brass, and I did want to bring up there's a lot of questions from people joining tonight, to reiterate and kind of have them understand on the concept plan. If it passes through and votes on tonight, it's with conditions, and there's about 30 of them, and that would answer a lot of these questions in terms of grading, trees, you know, stormwater pond, elevations, parking, traffic, like all that gets taken into consideration at this concept, where someone steps forward and says, hey, I want to develop this property. Here's my concept. We look at it, it says it fits within the general zoning. Now we have to go figure it out and come back and prove it to us. And so that's where the next step is. And at that step, again, community would have full feedback and come to the meeting and voice their concerns and anything that wasn't accomplished, or in their views, not accomplished through that next step through engineering and design.
Thank you, Commissioner Brass. That's a good point. Yeah, I could have brought that up earlier. The staff has 31 points that need to be addressed on the concept plan, and that's part of the process of concept to preliminary.
Commissioner Dalkey, if you'd like, First Missionary Church, sorry, I forgot your name. has their hand raised again.
Oh, all right. Well,
Go
ahead.
ahead. First Missionary Church,
It's
if you want to.
Will Hope again at 421 Wilderness. One question for Brian. How do you determine medium density versus high density? And again, with the triangular shape of the property, is that a factor that you're going to have to put into the consideration? So how do you determine medium density and high density?
Well, I'll let Kevin or Liz give you whatever detail they can on that, but this property or areas are zoned, and this is zoned for this type of building. And then I'll let, that's not a very detailed answer. So Kevin or Liz can add on to that, please.
Yeah, so density wise, again, per our comp plan, you know, you're either in the low density, the medium density, or the high density category. And again, this is a guiding document that generally guides kind of the overall density within these compartments or designations, so to speak. But it is based on the amount of dwelling units per acre of a site. So in essence, you'd be taking the dwelling units divided by the acreage, which is about 3 acres, and you're a little under 11 units per acre with this site.
But all 3 acres is not developable property. That's the buildability of the site. Not all 3 acres are 3 acres.
Well, we still consider local access streets into that calculation.
Yeah. I think that changes the factor between medium density and high density, because not all the acreage is developable.
I hear you, but we have a standard definition which we've applied to all property, and we're applying the same definition to this property, and it is a medium density proposal. And I understand and appreciate your issues about, you know, you should subtract this or add this, but that isn't how the math has been done in terms of determining density. And that's been pretty consistent as we've gone through things in the community, and including yours, you know, in terms of, you know, the Pioneer Point neighborhood, in terms of how we calculated density there. And all of these projects, there's a range of units per acre, and this falls within that. And it is consistent with the definition which we've used for a considerable time. And, you know, I do get your point that not all of it's this or not all of it's that, but our definition in how it's applied looks at, you know, the acreage of the property, and that's what we utilize.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that.
All right. Mr. Wright, do we have any other speakers?
We do have Michael Henderson has his hand raised again.
Okay. Go ahead, Michael.
Hi, my name is Julie Pfeiffer. I live at 2783 Wagon Wheel Curve. We live in the same residence. I have lived here since 06, December of 06. My concern with this concept plan is mainly the buffer of noise. We do have the beautiful woods there that are on the north end next to Pioneer Trail. And we are kind of 1 block in where we live, and it's noisy right now with the trees there, with police cars, ambulance, fire trucks, and traffic. So when you take down some of those trees, I realize some are being saved, but when you take down the trees and you're building this 1-level building, I am concerned about more noise and more visibility. 2, that is a beautiful trail for walking, biking, running along Pioneer. I know they're going to keep that, but just the nature itself is lovely. And so I do not agree with this concept. I wish we would have been notified. March 10th, I received nothing in the mail. I did get the letter that I have today that I'm making notes on regarding this meeting, so I appreciate that. My other concern is there really a need for this? Did you say 27 residents that they would be able to house? I know across the street from Coles, which is nearby, is Chaska Heights. So that is a senior center for probably memory care and independent and assisted living. And also, isn't there another project going up down 41 just to the south of Crown of Glory Church? I saw a sign or a billboard advertising, I think, senior resident. So I'm wondering, is there a great demand, and do you have people already signed up to live here in this one level building? Thank you for answering my questions.
Well, I would probably direct those questions more so to the development team to answer regarding need and if they're even advertising it now. I know Todd with the development team has his hand up, so I don't know if he wanted to help with that, or Nate running.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Todd.
Oh, this is Todd with TCO Design. So I am the representative of Cantissimo, of Chaska and Chaska Pioneer. Willing to answer any questions. I'm sorry that there were several people who did not receive notices. We did get our mailing labels from the city based on your property ownership. Ms. Hanson will definitely provide you with any information of mine so that I will be more than willing to send you what we have, what we're trying to do. I feel very comfortable about this particular project. I think all of your concerns duly noted, and this particular project with this minimal number of residents. And again, these are residents who are pretty stationary. They're not driving. No one is driving. This is an assisted living memory care facility. It really is a perfect fit for this corner. And we have challenges with this corner, as been expressed by Ms. Hanson, having to do with the setback from Pioneer Trail, just having to have some space to develop because it's triangularly shaped, and the access. The access is definitely a challenge, and we've been trying to deal with that. And we've talked to a number of people. We've trying to get a hold of the homeowners association. So again, I'm gonna, my notes are kind of spread out, but I know that we've got a Michael and we have a Julie, and excuse me for being so informal, and Will. Any contact information you have would be greatly appreciated. We do have an easement that was recorded with the county. Our surveyor is putting that on a survey, or we have a survey, and so we're putting that on a survey to actually see what was agreed on back in 2001. We are not necessarily in favor of going through Pioneer Point to, with our access, but I think that might be what the easement is. Lining up with Target, the challenge there, the county requires or may require a turning lane, which again presents some challenges for the development team. But we're trying to work through those, and certainly we'll present those, hopefully. Again, the surveyor's working on those, and hopefully we'll have some a little better information. What I feel comfortable about was, which I started this conversation with, is that this project concept really has the least impact on traffic. I know, Will, you had expressed some concern about the school pickup and things like that. Understandable, but our traffic is considerably less than Target and things that else are going on there. So yes, we would kind of like to just join in with Hundermark on that, because again, I feel like our traffic, and we're presenting Ms. Hanson with some traffic studies that will show this based on this new concept. We really don't want to go through Pioneer Point, and if we have to, if that's what the easements say we have to, we'll deal with that. And we don't prefer that, but at the same time, if we don't have to put an extra turning lane in because of the county, you know, again, we will deal with that. But my bigger concern is that several of you have not received our notices or were unable to communicate with me. So again, Ms. Hanson has my contact information. Please contact her. I will talk to you on the phone, through emails, you know, whatever you're comfortable with. We just want to make sure we're given full disclosure, because again, I don't run into these too often where I'm actually presenting a project that is less than what the zoning code allows. This is a one-story building, no underground parking. We're trying to save the trees by, again, not that we're trying to, we want to save the trees, but this concept without going underground parking, because we're not digging down into the ground 10 feet, will save some trees ultimately. But again, it's just a smaller building, one story. We really feel, I mean, I feel this is just a good fit for this project. So please feel free to even question me tonight, or again, contact me through Ms. Hanson, and glad to talk to you.
The one question you didn't touch on was the market analysis.
Yeah, that's
okay.
I was going to bring that up as well. Go ahead, Todd.
Sure, and so what I've been told is that there's this. Okay, we'll go back to my comfort of this particular ownership group that I've worked with. Oh gosh, for a few years now. They really are pushing for the small groups, small facility type projects. They're projects that they own and operate are similar to this kind of the. I'm not trying to push your points of Chaska, but the small town thing, that is what they kind of operate on. So they've done their studies. They have to get their money to do this. So anytime you develop this type of property and invest this kind of money, studies are required. Studies show, and Nate can probably back me up on this, I'm hoping, that the studies show that this is a site that will support this type of facility. So again, I feel comfortable with that, but if Nate's still hanging around, he will probably chime in.
Todd, one other point I believe that was brought up was the need for this type of facility. As we know, there are a couple other ones going up or have gone up in Chaska. The Del Webb community down on 41 by Crown of Glory is a completely different thing. It doesn't have anything to do with assisted living or memory care. It's just a 55 plus community. So that's not relevant, totally, but there are others.
Yep, absolutely. And this being a smaller facility, one story, this falls more into that acute care, memory care, you know, again, no one is driving. These people are dependent upon this facility and their providers. So it's a little bit different. So the studies will differ. And yeah, this doesn't compare to the 3-story, you know, even 2-story things that are going on.
Maybe Nathan can answer that question.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Please.
Yeah, no, we've had 2 market studies done on this location for our acute care and memory care. And I had them busted out all the way. So our zone, it goes all the way down to Shakopee, all the way up to 101 and Highway 7, where that new Havenwood Senior Living was built, which is way out of our market area. Then we've gone all the way out to Waconia, and then brought it back in within a 5-mile radius. And the demand's there for our care within a 5-mile radius. So you know, that's the first thing we do is the market study before we even look for a location.
Very good.
That's been updated in the last. Be happy to send you a copy of it if or maybe
that would be great.
Elizabeth, we can attach it to the next docket or something. We had one updated about a month ago.
Perfect.
Okay, Kevin, have we exhausted our people that want to talk?
Yes, all hands are tired and lowered, so.
All right. Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission. Do the commissioners have any additional questions for the developers or for our esteemed staff?
Our esteemed staff, maybe you can help me out because I'm new to the commission and this has quite a legacy to it, obviously, this property.
Well, I just meant Kevin. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dee.
Oh.
I thought you were joking around with me.
Oh, no, sorry. So the change from the 125 foot to the 100-foot setback off of Pioneer Trail, does that require a variance?
In this instance, it would be a rezoning. So when we rezone the property, we apply the setbacks as a part of that. But kind of coupled into that is our analysis of determining if the deviance from the 125 is appropriate.
And is rezoning separate from the approval of the concept plan? Is that a separate process and step that would come before us?
Yep, it would be during the preliminary. So, yep. So any or commentary towards that, we should hear about that now. But based on our analysis and what they're proposing out there and sight lines and so forth are being maintained. So it's just a matter of if you guys have additional comments towards that.
And then just for our guests, rezoning does require a public hearing, so you would have opportunity for input then as well.
Right.
And I don't know that I've been through a rezoning, of this nature. Maybe I think we've had some minor ones along the way, but like with a variance to the ordinance, it had to be a demonstrated hardship. Is it the same thing with the rezoning?
Since we're not going through the full-on variance process, no, it wouldn't be a part of that. But with any rezoning that we do, I mean, we do it with any subdivision that happens in the city. So at that time, we're applying the setbacks as a part of the development. And as a part of your analysis, you're reviewing the setbacks proposed during that time and applying it to the rezoning that happens.
So we'd be going through the same rationale, just not the same process.
Right. Yep.
This is Commissioner Brass, and just to clarify, because it's currently an open zone, which is like a holding pattern, right? And then so the rezone, we're not like changing really, we're zoning to the guided use on the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like we're changing from business to housing. We're zoning from what the holding is to make it align with our comp plan.
Right.
Okay.
So more than likely, it's going to be rezoned to a PRD, which is a planned residential district, which is very typical with any residential zonings. But as a part of that, we do establish the required setbacks at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm struggling with this, so from going to the 125 to the 100-foot setback is the 100, and this is, it sounds like it's specific to Pioneer Trail. So are there other properties adjacent to this one on either side that are utilizing 100-foot setbacks that that makes this one fit with those? I guess I'm trying to. I've just got that hardship stuck in my head. So if they bought this property with an understanding that there was a 125-foot setback and therefore there was a certain amount of developable property on it, and now they come to us and want the 100-foot setback so that they can develop it more, that's not a hardship to me. And that's what's spinning in my head. So how does that fit?
Yeah, and again, looking at this site in comparison to other sites is a lot of what your analysis has to be composed of. So if you look at kind of the constraints that are applied to this site versus sites that are around it, it's definitely not similar. So the other sites across the street do meet that 125-foot setback.
So I mean, I just think, man, they've put a ton of work into this, and I look at this packet, and my hat's off to Nathan Running and Todd, for doing their due diligence and work. But I'm just afraid we're sending them down a path here that that we approve as a commission, we approve a concept plan, but it's contingent on us later approving a rezoning and a setback change. It just feels like the cart before the horse is just my layman's reaction to this as I hear it. I don't know. Is it any of the other commissioners? Are you?
I think this is standard procedure, correct?
Right. That's what I was just going to say. Yeah.
This is pretty standard where if it's an open zone, which is being held on a certain property, then it would be rezoned at the preliminary plat stage to its designated zoning, according to the comp plan out there in public.
And Dave, I do have kind of a similar feeling, which is having assuming that that's a done deal on the easement of the setback. It almost has to go with they have to come back with the preliminary plan of checking all the boxes to be able to say that everything has been done and it's not a done deal that the easement's going to be given, but they have to do more due diligence to be able to check that box. And to your point, it's not saying that, yep, they can go forward and do it. It's just a matter of they've got a lot more work to do at the preliminary stage to be able to make sure all of that is covered and that, we are satisfied with what they've done in order to be able to, extend that variance to the setback. So there are concerns with it, but that's the part where, with the concept plan, it's kind of a low threshold, but a lot of it comes back together at the preliminary stage.
I would agree with Commissioner Olson that one of the things that's useful to the developer and the neighborhood is us identifying the issues that they need to address. And what I hear you saying is one of the issues they need to address is the reduction of that setback. I mean, we've talked about transportation and alignment and things that they need to address. We're kind of giving them a laundry list of saying, here are the things that through this relatively easier process with a lower bar that you can get through. And it's going to give you an ability to get a list of things that you need to work on as you move forward. And to me, that's one of them, is talking about, the value of that reduction of the setback, the issue with transportation, how do you screen along the common property line? All of those things are things that aren't resolved today. But this is a way for them to kind of get that list of things in a public setting and for all of us to participate in a way that allows them to get a list of things that they need to work on. So when they come back, we're not coming up and saying, oh, you should have also worked on this. And this really gives us that chance to kind of allow them to hear kind of that laundry list of things that they need to accomplish to be successful as they move forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Kevin. That's well phrased, and I can understand that concept. And I will add, that I am a supporter of these types of developments in our community, and I'm a huge advocate for making sure that we have the full life cycle accommodated within how we develop. So, Chairman Dalkey, thank you. That's what I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Riley. Well said. Any other input?
This is Commissioner Brass.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I would like to say that I was pleasantly surprised to see this concept. Again, it is very well thought out. They had a lot of stuff from the previous one. I think they kind of, from their knowledge, probably saw ahead of time. Obviously, the reduction in units is, I think, favorable. I do think with a memory care facility with practically nobody driving, it's not even close to the amount of traffic that could have been on this site if this were to pass. It'd be very minimal. And even then, if the traffic isn't, whatever's the safest option, I mean, ideally it'd be to line up with the target access. And if that's determined not the safest access, or that can't happen, and it does need to go through Pioneer Point, I think, it seemed like a lot of the residents were concerned about the safety of that access on 100 Mark, and wanting to see if they could line up with Target or figure out something else because of the different traffic patterns. So, even at that point, if you had to go through Pioneer Point and utilize an old easement, I think it would even be more favorable than at that point, because it would be safer than creating, traffic problems on 100 Mark. But just in general, with the lower building, I think it's a very favorable design. I mean, it looks good. I also do want to just take a quick moment to point out, or at least, I don't know if there was a question about, the demand of the product, and, has the developer, what kind of demand is there? And, do you really need to build this product? I don't know. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin or Liz, if it's appropriate for the commission to judge someone else's demand, whether or not if they've determined they want to spend money, build a property and do it, and it falls within the zoning and the guidance and the laws that we established, then they can do that. I don't think we need to judge our decision on whether or not we feel there's demand for a product in the market. I just don't think that's appropriate or prudent on the commission's behalf. And maybe I'm completely wrong, but I just wanted to, put that out there.
No, I think this is good information. Yeah. But you're right. You have a set of rules you need to abide by, but I think it helps people understand why they would pursue it, which I think some residents are still trying to wrap their heads around, right? And which is understandable. If it's a new project, you're trying to understand it. It helps everybody kind of think about it. And I think that's the helpful part about being able to share that information, so they can see, as some commissioners know, because I mean, we did have a concept plan that went through even north of here that had 180 memory care that didn't happen for a variety of reasons. But we have a graying community and a graying state and a graying nation, and these are going to be more needed than less needed in the future. And so it's not surprising from a planner's perspective to see these come to our community. And we should, as a community, be expecting to see more. It would be shocking not to see these. Just knowing the demographics that we have, like I said, in our city, our state, and our country, which tends to be graying, that this would be a logical outcome and a logical market that the housing people are trying to provide for.
Yep, I completely agree. And I think it's a great use. And I do, like Commissioner Riley had said, the whole life cycle is great to see in our town. And as a commercial agent in the Twin Cities market, representing this, different various aspects of the commercial industry, I can tell you this is extremely underserved right now. This is a red hot market. And so, I personally know there's demand. I just wanted to kind of state, just for going forward, I just didn't know if it was appropriate for commission to take whether or not there's demand in our decision-making process for somebody versus what we should be focusing on was whether or not this fits in the zoning, the guidance. The applicant is going to fine tune their details according to our provisions. I just didn't know if that should cloud our judgment per se.
I agree with you, Rob, but it's like you said, or like Kevin said, it's also good to have this info and our opinions and knowledge out here especially since we have people outside the commission that are weighing in tonight as well. So.
Gotcha. I agree.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, hearing no further input, I would entertain a motion on the concept plan.
Well, Commissioner Brass, I'll make a motion to approve the, let me
I
just
think
get
it's
the.
31, I believe.
Yep, so I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the city council of the concept plan for Cantissimo of Chaska, subject to the following 31 conditions.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Brass,
Commissioner Seiler will second.
second by Commissioner Seiler. Thank you. Any further input from the commission? Okay, hearing nothing. Liz, would you do a roll, please?
Yep. Commissioner Brass,
Aye.
Lacy,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
Seiler,
Aye.
Urbanski,
Aye.
and Chairperson Dalkey.
Aye.
What are you seeing tonight?
All right. Thank you. And thank you for the input from our guests and from the developers. Moving on the agenda, we added 7D to our action items tonight, and that is to fill the role of vice chair now that Commissioner Bovee resigned. I'm not sure, Kevin or Liz, what's the next step?
I think it's have Commissioner Brass or anybody else who wishes to be the vice chair state so, and have somebody make a motion in a second and take the vote.
Well, I think with an email to Liz, I offered it since we don't have one and I've done it before. And so I'd be willing to do it. And plus the last meeting when you were gone, Brian, I did it like in 7 minutes. So I mean, I'm not gonna
you're close. You're close to the record. It's Mike Hung might challenge you, but I don't think I can.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to have Commissioner Rob Brass move into the co-chair's role.
And I'll second it.
All right, very good. Commissioner Brass has been nominated and seconded for vice chair of the Planning Commission. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Liz, would you do the roll, please?
Yep. Commissioner Brass?
I get to vote for myself?
Sure.
You do, actually.
Aye.
Lacy?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Riley?
Aye.
Seiler?
Aye.
Urbanski?
Aye.
And Chairperson Dalkey.
Aye. Congratulations, Rob. I hope there's more 7-minute meetings in all of our futures.
All right, thank you.
Okay, great. We've got that taken care of. Let's move on to other business, which is to receive in meeting minutes from the March 15th, 2021 EDA. We're going to receive in the minutes of the February 9th, 2021 Park Board meeting and the minutes of February 22nd and March 15th of the Chaska City Council. So those have been read into our minutes. The last thing on the agenda would be a quick roundtable. Anybody have any comments or info they'd like to share with the group? Commissioner Lacy, are you talking? Because I saw your lips move, but I can't hear you.
I said it's good to see you back, and I hope you're feeling better.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And just because he said that, I'll go next and thank everyone for their messages and concern while I was out. I do not wish that on anybody. So hopefully everyone's getting their vaccinations, and we are hopefully looking for better times ahead. But anyway, thanks everybody. I really appreciated your concern and your messages, and that was great. All right, anyone else?
Are we kind kind of hopefully penciling in actually getting back together live as a group again anytime soon?
Yeah, we're waiting to hear from the council on, once they kind of get going, we'll be bringing the planning commission back in as well. Probably still will maintain some level of Zoom, because as you can see, it does allow people to participate in a way that maybe limited them before. And so we're still working through some of those details. So I think Zoom is with us for a while, at least in terms of see how the public maybe continue to engage with it. But I'm hopeful. I'm not sure if it'll be the May meeting, but June or July, I'd be pretty certain that somewhere in that range is when we'd be back. Is my guess right now, unless things start to go haywire again. We were kind of set to go live again in last November, and here we are still. So absent anything unusual happening right now, it seems like, and I know that we've made available vaccinations to commission members and things like that, and so we're waiting for all the rounds to kind of happen with the different people who are involved, so that we can at least make sure that we're being as proactive as possible to make sure that people are being safe or can be safe before we ask them to come back. And so not only staff, commission members, technical people. So we're trying to work through those lists, and I think it's about depending on which vaccines you use, kind of that 6-week process. So we're going to see where we wind up, but right now I think that's kind of what we're aiming for as a community. And so stay tuned, but I'm hopeful that pretty soon we'll be back in person, and which would be great.
Perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. Liz, anything?
I don't have anything.
You did a great job tonight as usual, and I'm glad to hear that going forward, we will, I agree with you, Kevin, totally. The Zoom process is probably here to stay. It'll probably get a lot more people involved, and maybe on the hot issues, less people actually in the room. And with a genius like Mr. Wright, I'm sure it'll go off without any hitches.
Oh, you're making me blush.
Okay, if no one else has any input, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Brass makes a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second?
Commission, second.
Thank you. Liz, roll please.
Yep. Commissioner Brass,
Aye.
Lacy,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
Seiler,
Aye.
Urbanski,
Aye.
and Chairperson Dalkey.
I as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining tonight. And